Welcome to Coffee, Eggs and Inspiration. It's a weekly show that goes out over YouTube and as a podcast over all of the major channels. And each week I get to sit with an inspiring person and listen to them tell their story and share it with all of you. This week is no different. I'm here with Harry Seaton. Welcome,
Hello.
Harry.
Good morning.
I'll give Harry the customary introduction. Harry is a YouTuber and social influencer, a musician, a speaker, and the MD of a social marketing company called Fluential, which we'll talk about. Very interesting background that we'll ask Harry to elaborate on. Dropped out of school in lower sixth to sign a record deal, so started as a musician and did that for a bit after a pretty successful set of gigs around the UK and some early success on social media as well. In parallel became a YouTuber. He's still got about 24,000 subscribers, so decent sized YouTube channel, 1.5 million views, lifestyle and music and everything in between. And more recently was the co-founder and now the MD of Fluential, which uses social media influencers to help brands build awareness, consideration and hopefully purchase. Is that a good summary?
Probably the best I've ever heard.
Oh my goodness, that's very kind. So tell me about the, let's roll back to the start. Tell me about your early music career, because I know before you signed the record label, you were a touring musician, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so start from the beginning, most logical place. When I was 7, I started playing guitar after kind of having no idea what instrument I wanted to play, just knowing that I wanted to play one.
How did you learn? Did you have a teacher?
I had a teacher, yeah. I didn't for the first year, and I didn't really get very far because, I was kind of 7, so 16 years ago I didn't have the the most 7-year-olds these days can kind of go onto the internet and teach themselves, but I had nothing to watch or anything and didn't know anyone who played, so kind of just hit it for a year till I found a teacher down the road, and did that for a few years. Took to it. I kind of noticed myself, people around me noticed too, but I noticed as well that I took to it very quickly. It was, it kind of felt like second nature, and so I just fell in love with it, and I loved it so much. So by 10, I started attempting to sing. I'm glad I don't have any recordings of that. It was terrible. First song I ever sung was Stuck in the Middle with You. I had a little black book of about 50 songs, and I was just going through them, and it probably would have made for an interesting cover because I'd never heard the original song. I just started singing this version that I'd made up in my head. But yeah, kind of fast forward that, played my first show at 10 as well, just an open mic night, just at a pub down the road. And it went down well, but I couldn't tell if it was really just because I was the 10-year-old playing guitar and singing. But yeah, it's it grew and evolved from there, and has looked very different over the years. But yeah, at its peak, obviously, it kind of involved touring, and there was years and years of kind of like local pub gigs to between 2 and 50 people, 50 if I was very lucky, 2 normally, that led up to that moment. But it's just been a massive passion of mine, and even as I've got busier with other things, it's always been such a key part of my life.
And you were touring at 16, and you had to get your mum to book things for you? This all came off the back of this social media following that I was able to grow. But I'd had a manager for a little while, and he was a great guy, but he was quite a traditional manager, and he didn't really understand the power of the social media followings I've been building, and wasn't really looking to make the most of those, whereas I really wanted to, and I really wanted to kind of meet these people who are following me and kind of so thank them in person and perform for them, and move away from the screen and kind of almost turn this kind of music career that it looked like I was building. It didn't almost feel real because I hadn't actually been in person yet. So yeah, I wanted to tour. A friend of mine who at the time was filming all of my videos that were more than just kind of self-filmed projects. He was 18, I needed him to come with me. I had to get my mum to book it because I don't think my bank account would work with these sites, but it was like Travelodge and National Express coaches and everything. We had to, I did it really cheaply, to be fair, but
yeah, I think the tickets were about £5, which yeah, super cheap. But it was a 7-day tour over 9 days of the UK, kind of all over. Completely self-booked, other than Mum's help on her laptop. Completely self-promoted, all through social media, but complete sellout.
What a fabulous story. Thanks, Mum.
Yeah,
shout out to Mum. So you had a following an early following on social media. Let's get into that and talk a little bit about that. What platforms were you using and how did you build that?
So it's really interesting, actually. It was a complete accident. First and foremost, the first thing that ever happened in the world of me kind of growing within social media was YouTube. I had watched a couple of other artists, mainly Lewis Watson, Gabrielle Aplin, performing covers filmed on webcams. The whole kind of laggy video, and the audio was terrible because it was filmed on webcams from laptops from about a decade ago. And I just thought, I'm making music and I'm singing these songs and similar songs. I could do that.
Right.
So I started to do it, started to upload it to YouTube, and it didn't really go anywhere at the time. Probably because the titles and the descriptions I must have been given those videos must have been terrible. I reckon I was just calling it like me singing. Anyway, yeah, thankfully know a bit more about it nowadays, but moved on to Tumblr as well, still all the while...
Sorry to interrupt you, you're talking about the captions, right?
Yes.
You've got to draw people in with the captions. I got that advice the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, check out my captions now.
Are they really good captions?
I don't know.
No?
We'll soon find out.
We'll have a look, yeah. If this video suddenly gets 1 million views, then you smashed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I moved on to Tumblr, and there was this kind of if there's ever a pivotal moment in my social media career, so to speak, it was this one picture. It was a skate park in Norwich, and a friend of mine, it's what could be described as the most hipster photo in the world. I had a self tie-dyed t-shirt on, a 5-panel snapback cap, skinny jeans, and some Nike blazers, bright green. And holding a skateboard, and this friend of mine who was quite well followed on Tumblr, who's also from there, we took this picture and we shared it out, and it got something ridiculous like 250,000 shares.
Wow.
I have no idea why. It was taken.
Were you a skater?
No, but it looked good in photos, so I can see. I've since learnt a little bit, but I was never very good. It was only for the pictures. I have to shamefully admit that. But anyway, this kind of with that came a bit of a following, and I used that to push people back to my YouTube channel,
right.
And say, by the way, I do more than just pose with a skateboard, and I would share them out, and they would start to build a few views, and from there, kind of things started evolving a lot with social media. At this point, I didn't even have a Facebook account. I didn't get Facebook till I was about 15. I didn't have Twitter. Instagram wasn't on my radar. If it even existed, I can't even remember back to kind of this was about 2012, 2013, so I don't think so. So anyway, so it's just YouTube and Tumblr. And then, slowly moved to Facebook, started uploading the exact same videos to Facebook and YouTube,
right.
At first, until I realised what would do well on YouTube. My singing would do really well on YouTube. I'd built like a really music-heavy audience on my YouTube who just loved my music. On Facebook, I had an audience more for kind of goofing around.
Right.
So I started to make these little skits and silly videos. But yeah, somehow that led to kind of, me and a friend of mine also that I decided to rope in, becoming two of the fastest growing creators in the UK on Facebook. They just announced followers, and we turned them on our profile. And we do anything to increase our following. There was times where we would make someone a cover photo in return for collabing with them. So that we'd say someone else with like 80,000 followers, we'd say, we'll film a video with you. We'd love to film a video with you. We'll make you a cover photo if you'll let us film a video with you.
Right.
I would never advise in building a creative career this way now. Things have evolved a lot and it doesn't really work like this anymore. But I would download a template off the internet and just edit it with their name in and send it. It would take me about 5 minutes, and then we get to collab, and then I'd gain like 5,000 more followers. And nowadays, if you were to do things like that, those followers probably wouldn't care so much about you. But back then, there was so little people to follow. There was a clique of these people with Facebook followers in the UK. There's probably about 15, 20 of us. now there's more people to follow than you will ever be able to follow.
Yeah.
But back then there was only these few main people, and we were two of them.
So if you're riding that wave, you've got a few people with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, actually. A lot of people talk about social media and sort of put it into the same basket. And what you've hit on there, Harry, is the fact that these platforms are very different. Not only that, people consume differently on different platforms. Shorter clips and funny, goofy stuff on some of the social media channels, longer stuff on YouTube, potentially. Not only that, you can connect them horizontally and drive people from one platform to the other, and that generally is how you build a following, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to do that so much back then. I mean, nowadays, it's fairly common knowledge that Facebook aren't massive fans of you sending their audience elsewhere. But I used to send people to my YouTube non-stop because, if I was building an audience through this kind of goofiness and these videos, and some of them were interested in my music, I wanted to keep the two kind of separate. So I would send people to my YouTube, and they would go through. But the one sad thing that I always find when I think back about it is that I never know how many views any of my Facebook videos got, because I didn't have a view count back then.
Yeah.
And some of these videos would have kind of 40,000 plus shares.
Yeah.
And I just think, how many views are on there? How many millions of views did we rack up that we will never ever find out? And even when they announced a view count, retrospectively it would come up as 0 views, so it would have like 70,000 engagements, 0 views, because they weren't counting them back then. Such a shame, but oh well, life goes on.
Funny that, yes, they don't like to send people off the platform. When I post on Insta or Facebook, unless I'm promoting, actually paying for the post, I can't make a clickable link. No. It just sits in the profile, so that's why. Thank you very much. And look, it's a different page now, but you've got 32,000 Facebook followers, 5,000 on Instagram, 15,000 on Twitter. That's a serious social footprint and an influencer, in and of itself, right? But you're doing different things these days. Yeah,
it sounds so weird. I actually did a long post about this not too long ago, because I feel like such a fraud for saying that it's a struggle, because it's not a struggle. But as my life has kind of changed a lot, and my life is now so evenly split, or perhaps even more weighted towards my business side of things than my music, and kind of there's no skits or goofiness in my life that are on camera anyway these days. I've struggled a lot with having an audience that was there for goofiness, for music, and trying to talk to them about business, because the thing is that I spend a lot of time talking in universities, schools, colleges about digital careers, and I really wanted that to be something I could share with my audience, and a lot of them have been very receptive. But it is hard to knowing that, when I want to post something, thinking, well, maybe I can't, because actually they don't really care about this. They just want to see.
It's probably a different audience, right?
It's but I don't want to. Or equally, I don't want to have 5 different social medias on one platform. I don't want to have like a 2 different Instagrams or 2 different Twitters. So I've kind of dual branded them. I've tried to kind of focus on just being me and talking more. I realised that I was only ever going on the platforms recently, especially, and maybe it's because I was a bit more time conscious, but to promote this or that. So I would say, we've just won an award, Fluential, or I've just released this song. And I was no longer Harry Seaton. I was Harry who made music, or Harry who ran a business. So now I'm trying to spend a bit more time just being me, and then when these things come along, it doesn't matter, because the audience that are there are now there for me, and anything that comes under that is fine with them, and that's kind of the direction things have moved in now, which is really nice.
This is gold, Harry. It feels like I'm getting free consulting advice. This is marvellous. Fantastic. So that kind of, by the way, what do you think of you're a more experienced YouTuber than me. What do you think of my setup here?
I love this. The reason why I love it is because it's just taken you about 10 seconds to set up. As you know, I've watched your stuff, and the quality, you wouldn't know that the rig was so small for what you've made.
You can take a photo of it. You can post it, and for those who are watching the video or listening to it as a podcast, you can see what I use. It's a smartphone mounted on a gimbal claw like this, with a little tripod and a shotgun mic.
And this is exactly the problem that I'm now experiencing, is that I'm having to spend ages setting this up. There we go. Picture taken.
Excellent. In the middle of an interview, that's a first. tell me about Fluential and how that came about.
Yeah. Okay. So Fluential has been a wild ride, and it came out of nowhere because this everything that happened with dropping out of school and everything like that, and kind of unsure what I was meant to do. I was working at KFC for a while, and then I was working at a car insurance company, and then the friend of mine actually that I mentioned I went on tour with, he worked at this creative agency. I didn't know what a creative agency was. I didn't know marketing agencies existed. I had no idea. I was 17. I had no idea. And they seemed like they were the only one of their kind in our town. I live in a small town. It's not the smallest, but it's about 70,000 people in the town. And they were the only one of their kind. So anyway, he said, I was thinking, well, you are infinitely better than me at making videos, but they don't just make videos. I'm sure I could do something. I'm sure something I know is worth something to them. No formal qualifications, so I did fairly well in my GCSEs, but no A-levels. Obviously, I left. No marketing qualifications. So I knew I had to catch their attention. So I wrote a song, which told them to hire me. Boldly implied that they should fire one of their directors.
That is an innovative CV.
Well, there we go. Uploaded via YouTube as well, may I add. And sent. Although this is the hilarious part, I sent it to one of the directors. I'd left it on private. I hadn't put it to unlisted.
Oh no. So they couldn't watch it.
And they emailed back and they were just like, I'm so glad you've written this song, but it's private, so you can't watch it. But anyway, I got the job. So started off as an assistant at one of the agencies in this group. At this point, again, I didn't even know it was a group, but there were multiple agencies that these people had launched. And it was so exciting. I couldn't believe it, and I was running social media accounts, assisting with quite a lot of YouTube, and then a bit of Twitter, and a bit of Facebook too. But I did quite a lot of help with YouTube titles and captions and thumbnails and everything like that for some of their clients. Then I got an offer to move to London and run an influencer department for an agency that were about to launch their own down here. And again, all these opportunities have stemmed from YouTube. That one for me was the network that I was partnered with at the time on YouTube. It was that was launching an influencer department and asked me to go and work there. And I sat down with the founders and said, I've been offered this, and I do want to move. I would like to go to London and I would like to do influencer marketing. And they just said, well, we want to do influencer marketing. If you want to do it, then do it with us. Let's launch an agency.
Fantastic, yeah.
And we launched one. It's been going for about a year and a half now. Works in a number of different sectors. But it's so great for me because I've been able to. I never wanted to leave this world of content creating and influencing behind, and I wanted my work to involve it in some way, and now it does. It couldn't involve it more.
Well, following your passion and your skill. It's interesting, you mentioned while you were describing that story that you don't have formal qualifications, A-levels or any sort of post-tertiary education. However, you have built a YouTube channel. You've got 33,000 Facebook followers, 5,000 on Instagram, 15,000 on Twitter. You've experienced the good, the bad, and the ugly of building a brand.
Yeah.
Isn't that the best qualification in the world?
Well, this is the exact thing, and it's so great to hear you say that, and it's clearly what the founders of the Maze Group that I went to had seen as well. But I just had no idea, because especially considering when I was first in the world of being an influencer, there was so much less money in it then. We would nowadays, if someone of the size that I was then, I had at the time when I had about 50,000 followers on Facebook, I would get about kind of 8,000 likes per post on there. So it's big engagement, well over 10%. Yeah. And if it was a funny video, then it could get way more engagements than followers I had. It would be huge. And I would do posts like that in return for a T-shirt printed on a Fruit of the Loom heavy cotton from some edgy clothing brand that had been set up by someone also my age in another part of the UK. And nowadays, things like that would command thousands of pounds.
Now it's a thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so I never realised that there was such a need for it, especially among business. I just kind of again, you know, I wasn't following many companies on social media, so the only interaction I had with kind of company advertising was radio and television.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that there was about to be this big boom of everyone rushing to social, everyone launching their own YouTube channel, they're making their own Twitter, making, you know, and more recently with making an Instagram, making a TikTok, and you know, I had no idea that was already kind of starting and that I could play a part in that.
Well, when you don't know the rules, you get to make them yourself, which is the marvelous thing. So there's probably some young people listening to this as a podcast or watching it, thinking about a career in social media or marketing. Any advice for them?
Yeah, I think the best thing I can say is you just make sure that you're on every social media platform that you possibly can be, and really start to look a little deeper than just what are people doing, but why is it working? You know, what, especially from a psychology point of view as well. And I'd say look as much as you can into psychology. One of my co-founders of Fluential has a degree in psychology and has taught me a lot about it. And you know, social media ultimately just comes down to the people that are on it. And if you can understand the way they think and the decisions they make, then you know, you can bypass a lot of all this algorithmic rubbish that we're told about. There's a lot of truth to it, and there's a lot of things, but a lot of people are just guessing. But the best thing you can guess is how a human works rather than how the social platforms work. And if you understand that, then the platforms, you know, the people on the platforms that dictate how they work, because the algorithms only exist because we make them exist, because we interact in that way. If you can work people, then the algorithms will work for you. So that's my take on it.
Well, I think that's incredibly insightful advice. So social media is about people at the end of the day, and I totally believe that. You know, the digital age is more than ever a human age. That's never going to change. There are just different surfaces to reach people on.
Yeah.
It feels like I've had an intensive burst of a masterclass in social media.
That's what I aim for.
Harry Seaton, you're an inspiration and a real example of what's possible if you graft it out on social media.
No, thanks so much.
Thanks so much
Thanks
for
having
joining
me. Cheers.